This episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast is brought to you in part by No Judges Needed BJJ Apparel and Lavender Lane CBD products. You can use the promo code JJT for 20% off your first order at No Judges Needed, and the code JJTimes20, all uppercase. Last two items are numerical for 20% off your first order of CBD products. Thank you very much for sticking with us. Enjoy the show. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. And today we have an incredibly special guest, truly dumbfounded as to why he's wasting his time on our nickel and dime operation right now, but I'm not going to ask any questions. Please welcome to the studio, BJJ Brown Belt and ADCC head organizer, Mo Jassim. Mo, what are you doing here, man?
Honestly, I just love jiu-jitsu. I can talk about jiu-jitsu every day, all day. So, and I just trying to shed some light on this next ADCC, which is going to be something out of this world. So I don't mind doing interviews.
Super excited to have you on your show again. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate having you, brother.
That's like the equivalent of NBA Commissioner David Stern hopping on to like some guy's basketball podcast. And like, hey, you want to talk about the Celtics?
When you said yes in my Facebook message, I was like, really?
Honestly, one thing about me is I never forget who helps and supports. So I'll be honest, like the two, other than Flow, obviously the two outlets that I really appreciate is Jiu-Jitsu Times and like BJJ World TV. Like you guys have always supported us, so if I can help out, I'm more than happy to.
Just like yourself, like there are very few things in the world that I love more than BJJ, and the same thing with Kevin. And I think I try to bring that passion out to as much as I possibly can, and help build the sport as much as I can in my meager little window, sphere of influence, whatever I have. So
no, I hear you.
Yep.
So I think it's for a guy that's in charge of as much as you're in charge of. You took on the position of ADCC head organizer back in 2019.
Yes.
How is it? Obviously, there's been a lot of chaos in the time since.
If you guys want me to give you the history of how I got to that point, how about that?
Yeah, no, I was gonna. Yeah.
So I've done this. I've said this before in other interviews. Basically, what happened was my brother was living in Abu Dhabi at the time, and I went to go visit him the year 2000, and just by coincidence that's when ADCC was happening. And I knew about grappling because I actually started watching UFC since the first one. I remember I was like 1992, I think I was like 12 years old, so I knew what it was because of Hoist Gracie. So I went to go visit him in Abu Dhabi. He's like, hey, there's this grappling event, it's called ADCC, why don't you go check it out? So I went there in person, and I just fell in love with it. I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like Tito Ortiz was there, Mark Kerr, like these, at Matt Hughes. So I was like, wow. So I fell in love with it. And then 2005 came, ADCC was in Long Beach. I went to that one. And for me, like before 2019, I was like, that was the best ADCC. And that was like my benchmark to top. So after 2005, I moved to Abu Dhabi in 2006. And then that's when I became friends with the whole ADCC team. And I just started working with them starting in 2007. And then I just quickly moved up the ranks because, not to toot my own horn, but I'm probably considered the most knowledgeable when it comes to grappling and fighters and everything. So I just skyrocketed. I make a joke because like in 2007, I was a wristband boy. It's like my only job was to hand out the wristbands to the fighters. But then came 2009, 11, 13, they're just like, Mo knows what he's talking about. So I started handling the invites and the brackets. And then 2017 came, and I did the West Coast trials, and that was the one I went crazy. I did this massive event. I had Buchecha, Gordon, Leandro, Cyborg, just all these heavy hitters. And I was like, you know what? It went really well. I was like, I'm just going to go ask to do the world. So in Finland, I went to the ADCC boss, Guy Nevins. I was like, Guy, I want it. He's like, you want to do the worlds? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I think I'll do a good job. So that was it. I did the 2017 West Coast trials, the 2019 West Coast trials, and then I did the worlds. And I'm the first person ever to get ADCC twice. let alone consecutively. So I must be doing something right.
I will not tell you you're not, sir. And very briefly, I just wanted to back to you being a wristband boy. You performed that job admirably in Trenton, New Jersey.
Yes.
As a Jersey native, I just want to apologize that you had to go to Trenton. It's not exactly the most glamorous part of the state, but
I got family in Trenton, by the way.
By the way, it's a true story. I think 2 of the competitors were robbed at gunpoint.
Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds like Trenton.
No. We have here in Jersey, we have a lot of bodybuilders, we have a lot of lacrosse players, and we have a lot of criminals. Like that's like the trifecta that makes up the state. So
and a tomato here and there, and then
just a few loose tomatoes.
Hey, it's still a great event though.
So let's talk a little bit about the connection to Dubai and grappling, because I have somewhat of a general idea of how that came to be, but I think a lot of people don't realize how big grappling is in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. Like it's almost like a national sport.
I'll give you some insight on that. Yeah. Put it this way. So Abu Dhabi, which is the capital of the United Arab Emirates, they made it jiu-jitsu mandatory in all schools and for the military. So the last time I checked, this was like a year or 2 ago, they had 500 black belts living there in Abu Dhabi because they, so many schools. And when I used to train there, I go to I think it's called the IPIC Arena. It was either IPIC or Mubadal Arena. And you would literally see 100 black belts in the class training. So, and a funny story is in 2014, I flew out JT and Keenan to Abu Dhabi. And they were waiting for them like a pack of wolves. It was funny. They walked in like, holy crap, there's like 100 of them. And we just trained there for like 2 weeks straight. So they got some really tough guys.
I trained the United Arab Emirates national team when I went to Atos a couple years ago. I think Ricardo Limon is actually the head coach, I think, or something along those lines.
100%.
Yeah, they were at Atos a couple years back, and I trained with all those guys when they were getting ready for the Masters Worlds. I think it was the Nogi Worlds or something like that. But there was a thick crew. There was probably 30, 40 of them, all black belts, all top level guys, all ready to go kill. And I was really impressed with that. But tell me a little bit about the historical relevance about how jiu-jitsu made its way to Abu Dhabi.
Well, I mean, first you're going to have to start with ADCC, because ADCC has been around since 1998. That was founded by one of the Abu Dhabi royals, Sheikh Tahnoon. So he was definitely the first one that started that way. Right. I mean, 1998 was 22 years ago. There wasn't much jiu-jitsu. So definitely he was the pioneer of bringing it. Then the next step, I would say, was when the World Pro came about. Okay. So once Abu Dhabi World Pro came about, and then that's when they started making it mandatory in the schools and the military. But definitely ADCC was the one that led the way. And then World Pro was more of a gi. They used to do gi and no gi, but it was more gi based.
Yeah, I always think about that when I think about like the explosion of jiu-jitsu and modern explosions. Again, I always talk, I've been a black belt. I've been training for a while now. And like I can remember a dark day of jiu-jitsu before competitive jiu-jitsu was even a thing. You had the ADCCs and you had like a grappler's crest or maybe a naga here and there. But the idea of what, true professional grappling is today was nothing. And ADCC before anything else. And was really the first one.
And to sort of pivot off that a little bit, and this is a story I've talked about before. My brother is currently in the United States Marine Corps. And before he went out to basic training, I had been training for about a year. I was still a white belt, but my coach and I decided to give him a few like private lessons to help him just like with super basic like escapes and combative stuff, like two chokes, just because we knew that there was a little bit of grappling incorporated into the training for the McMap. And when he came back, we asked him about it, and he said, "You over-prepared me." We gave him like 3 lessons tops, like 3 hours each. And he's just like that. They go over very static drills, but they don't really go over how you flow and connect things together in like a grappling scenario. So it's good to know that there are countries that are more proactive about, we got to go into this like in depth just for making more equipped soldiers, if nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. And then just the discipline factor. Cause I've lived in Abu Dhabi. I still go back all the time, and I can see it in this, especially the new generation of Emiratis. Like, cause it takes time to develop in jiu-jitsu. Everyone knows that. I don't care if you're the best coach in the world. It just takes time. So when I go there and I see these 13, 14-year-olds, even the 12-year-olds, the new generation, they're pretty good. So I think this is going to pay off for them in the next few years. Like, really, really high level guys. So they just need to keep at it.
It's funny you say that, because that's the one thing that I always bring up when I talk about the new generation of grapplers. And I'll even put Gordon Ryan on the list of those new generation of grapplers. And you're talking about guys that started training in their teens, 8, 9 years old, and continued up to start to get their black belts at, 20, 21 years old, or they're still purple belts and things like that. Like, they're learning at a time when learning is part of your DNA. Like, you're picking up things and learning something as complicated as jiu-jitsu at the time when you're also starting to learn language, you're starting to learn to write, you're starting to learn to read. So like that ability to gain that knowledge is breeding what we now start to see when we see the William Tackett's, we see the Roberto Jimenez's, we see the Gordon Ryans, guys that came up grappling.
Yeah,
exactly.
Luckily for me, like with my position, I get to train with these guys all the time. Like I just had Gordon and some of the DDS guys here last week, just training with them for 10 days.
Right.
I had a camp in January, and these Rotolos, what are they, 16 years old?
Yeah.
They're killers. Like
crazy.
It's every time I train with them, even after like a few months, I just see this massive progression in them. So, like Nicky Ryan, the Rotolos, the Tackett brothers. So it's just crazy how quick they can progress.
Yeah, I mean, it's anyone that can go out on the mat with anyone that can last a full match with Wagner Rocha and get through the end of it without having complications. Like you're pretty tough, and when you can do it when you're 16 years old,
look what he did last ADCC. I'll be honest with you, 2 invites I got the most crap for, not that I care, is Ty Rotolo and the 10th, John Blank. And they both placed top 4. So
exactly.
Ty comes out, he beats Bruno Frazado in the first round. Bruno's a silver medalist. Then he goes and he beats Pablo Montavani. Then he has a good match with Paulo, almost Darcism, knee bars. So it's just, it's crazy to see his confidence. And I'm really interested to see what Ty does in the next ADCC.
Well, since you brought it up, we'll go ahead and pivot toward the gorilla in your room that seems to cause so many complications come ADCC time. Let's talk about invites. So we have a basic criteria that you offer, winning the trials, blah, 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 and all the other things that incorporate that. Tell me some things that you consider to be intangibles to when you're really sitting down and deciding, because there's a list of things, but lots of people kind of fit that criteria. Tell me about what you really look at when you're talking.
Well, let me give you the process, the way I look at it. So first of all, there's 16. Let's just take the men's division. There's 16 men in each division. There's 8 trials, so that takes away 8. So there's only 8 spots left. Generally, what I like to do is invite the previous 4 medalists from the next ADCC. So that means I only have 4 invites. So I have the 8 from the trials and the previous 4. So it just depends who wants to come in. For example, like I'm not going to name names, but the 77 and 99 minus 99 kilogram division for next ADCC is already full. Like there's just so many high level people that want to go into it. And for example, like Davi Ramos messaged me, he wants to come back. He's an ex-champion. So, when an ex-champion wants to come back, like I'm going to do whatever it takes to get him in. So it just depends on space. For example, like the heavyweight division next year, I think is going to be quite a bit of vacancies because I don't think Gushesha will be back unless he does like a super fight. I saw publicly Yuri wants to go back down to minus 99. And, it depends on the division, to be honest. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what you consider. So like, and I mean it in this way, like before we had this massive explosion of professional jiu-jitsu, you have your pick of the litter of generally, guys that are massively on the scene in jiu-jitsu versus guys that maybe might be a little more technically savvy, but don't have the acumen or the public eye.
You've hit the nail on the head. So that's the hardest part, right?
Right.
You got to balance, the technique of the competitor and also like, what he brings to the table. But so it's just really hard. I just do it case by case, who deserves to be there. And then will I throw in someone that's a big name that people want to see? Yeah, it's still an entertainment thing, but I just try to make it as fair as possible. When it comes to invites and the brackets, I can always justify any of them. So
do you have any problem? I mean, obviously you do, but tell me a little bit how you, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but because again, we're in a different world now. Like the idea of the ADCC before, you invited the ex-champions, and like there was a very small pocket of people that could viably be ADCC competitors. But now in the world we're living in, like, how do you balance the idea of making the event entertaining and catering to the public versus continuing to uphold the integrity of what you believe the ADCC entails? Because in my opinion, I still don't think there's another event that is integrity it has as much clout as the ADCC. It's the prestige of them all. Like how do you weigh those two balances?
I think a big factor, for example, like the trials have been delayed. I mean, I'm sure you read that, the North American trials. So I had an option of just proceed to do the Worlds and cut some trials and whatever, and I just didn't want to do that. I'd rather delay the event, because the thing I think that makes ADCC different than other organizations, anyone that's there deserves to be there, whether they're an ex-champion, an ex-medalist, they won the trials, and that's what builds up to the event. So, once these trials start firing off, early next year, hopefully, you're going to see these people coming up. And what makes ADCC interesting is there's always a breakout performance. So, for example, 2017, Craig Jones comes out, taps out Leandro. Everyone's like, okay, that's pretty interesting. Then he comes in and taps out Murillo. You know what I'm saying? So he had a pretty good breakout performance, and he went and did like 150 seminars that year.
That's a running joke. He's literally on every event. Every time you look at an event, there's Craig Jones again.
And because I'm good friends with Craig, and I always make fun of him. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie to you. You were literally my 15th, or like you were the last place from like number 15 seed in 2017. Because 2015 came, Hamlet just destroyed him. So that's the point. You can change a lot in 2 years. And then obviously last year was the Lachlan story. He came out and
giant killer.
He got, and I was the one that convinced him. I'm like, just go out and do it, man. And I'm like, if you do it, you have a higher chance of getting an invite. So he was sold on that, and he went and got bronze in the absolute.
So let's talk about, we've talked about who gets the invites, and we've talked about, what you do to make sure that people they're supposed to be there, get there.
I just want to say one more thing because I get this a lot, right? ADCC is completely different than any other rule set. Like, I'll have people message you like, I'm the no-gi IBJJF world champion. I'm like, that's great. This is different, because the physicality of ADCC is much higher than any other show. You can see it in the fights, and the level of competition too. So, and I've seen no-gi world champions go and do the trials and get submitted in the first and second round, and then add in the heel hooks, the wrestling. So for me, that's why we put a heavy emphasis on the trials. If you can do well at the trials, we know you can hang at the world championship. So
the idea of points being at such a high premium in the ADCC is what I believe makes it so amazing. The idea, like, when you score the ADCC, man, you did something. You did something. When you hold somebody down for a takedown, or you sweep somebody, you pass somebody's guard, and you hold them for that hard 3 count, man, like you earned those points.
100% right. Because this goes back to, I'm going to get into something else. So it's impossible to score an ADCC. It's so hard to score, because of the criteria. One continuous motion. Did you do it in under 3 seconds? So that's why in the judging criteria, the number one criteria, it's not sub attempts, it's who is the aggressor. And the reason is, if it's that hard to score, we have to incentivize you to push the pace. Otherwise, everyone's just going to sit there and, hand fight or whatever. So we need to incentivize you to go out there and push the action. And, I think I saw Hanato Kanuto after, he's just like, he's like, holy crap, these fights are grueling, So it's a big stage, the level. So everyone just brings it, and I say, people are like, what's the difference between ADCC and other shows? I'm like, the performances. Everyone fights 110%. They want to win it so bad, because if you win an ADCC title, it can change your life.
Well, even so much of that, man. When you talk about prestige again, like I always say this: you can't say you're a world champion until you win the IBJJF. There's just that granddaddy kind of thing about winning the IBJJF Worlds, but the fighters want to win the ADCC. There's nothing like the guys that are in the know. Even if you just win the trials, you're in an elite level of grappler, even higher than an IBJJF World Championship. I think the IBJJF, you could be strategic. You can learn to play those games and kind of manipulate your game. It's still difficult, but you can learn to win at IBJJF. There's no learning to win at
Well,
ADCC.
I think that's like a great example of how prestigious the ADCCs are, is that oftentimes individual matches happening during the tournament will be so spectacular that they overshadow like medal finishes. Like there could be matches individually that are so spectacular in the moment that they're just like, oh my God, this is the thing we're focusing on.
I mean, just look at the first round last year. Like we had Nicky Rod and Muhammad Ali in the first round. Like these are like every fight is a super fight. I remember on the Sunday, on the 3 mats, you had Nicky Rod and Cyborg, you had Gordon and Hulk, and then you had Kainan and Bushesha all at the same time. That's insane. Any one of those fights is a super fight. And you have 3 super fights going at the same time. So it's just really
I
really
think that
remarkable.
Often people will go right back to the Eddie Bravo example, but those are just a handful of examples that are just like
I always talk about that, So Eddie Bravo submitted Hoyler in 2003, who was a champion, and he just obviously exploded after that. The funny thing is, he fought Leo Vieira, and he lost pretty badly, like 20-something-0, but no one cares,
Right.
Craig submitted Leandro and Murillo, and then Keenan beat him pretty bad, and Gordon did too, but no one cares. So if you can have like one breakout performance, that's great. Like even Lachlan, I'm not trying to diss him or anything. I just speaking the facts. He hasn't won once yet in his division, but then he goes and does the absolute and gets bronze, takes out 3 guys. So no one cares that he lost in the first round.
He looked so happy on that podium.
Gary Tonin Canuto is another perfect example. I mean, I think if I had to pick the greatest match of the last ADCC, it's Gary Tonin freaking Canuto. Like I couldn't think of a more amazing match.
We gave that the best match. That was easy. I mean, that was amazing. And they even have like a submission. It's just these guys just went 15 minutes, going all out. So, at the end of the day, it's the competitors that make it special. We had a lot of cool storylines, like Gordon getting double gold with 75% submission rate. So a lot of cool things happen, and every ADCC something spectacular happens.
I would love to very briefly just because we've had submission underground matchmaker Heather Standing on here, and she's given us a lot of insight as to what it's like to be the person making these matches happen and these events happen. And when you go back in time looking at boxing and like back in the heyday before social media, all of these decisions would be made, set in stone, and people wouldn't really have an ability to comment on them and voice their approval or displeasure. But now with social media being what it is, every decision is put under this microscope. Yeah. So if you could, like, when you're sitting down and you're mapping out this very prestigious event, how much of that pressure gets to you? Like, are you able to just shut it all out?
It doesn't mean anything to me. I'll be honest with you. Like when it comes to no one can really influence me. I feel like I know what I'm doing, and I have to make things fair for everybody. So I'll take suggestions from people, no problem. One thing I'm open to is taking suggestions from everybody. I think that's the best way to grow. I'm not one of those people like, no, it's my way or the highway, but no one's going to influence me and make me believe something I don't believe, So, I get into arguments all the time with people and about the brackets or the invites, and I'm probably batting almost 100% in those debates. So once I explain everything, they're just like, okay, they get it.
Yeah, and it's they're not the one with their name on the line here. I mean, I will take your input, and we can discuss what your opinions are, and I'd be more than happy to hear your input on and your thoughts.
To be honest, like a lot of people in jiu-jitsu are biased too. People are going to look out for their teammates. They're going to look out for their team. I don't. I think that's a big problem with jiu-jitsu is people look for themselves a lot, and me, I'm just always thinking big picture. Everything to me is big picture. I want to push the sport as far, ahead as possible. Because like, let's be honest, I'm working on this thing for I'm gonna be working on this for like 15 months.
Right.
And the last ADCC, I essentially made nothing, and I don't care. I don't do it for money. I just do it for the passion. So, and I think that's what you see when I put on these events. Like for me, like for example, I got a bigger budget this year. We're gonna sell a lot more tickets. The arena's massive, but you're gonna see that when you go to the show. Like you're gonna see it way ramped up compared to 2019.
So cool. I got a few more questions, but I want to hit you with a good one just because this is something I'm not. This maybe it's not. Maybe I'm excited about this.
Let's talk. I got into super fight mode.
I know. What? Let's talk. Let's talk Seth Daniels. Right? Let's talk about, first of all, how do you keep him under wraps, and second of all, why did you bring him into the fold and what he brings to the table?
Okay, so let me just tell you how I met him. So obviously I know who he was. I was watching Fight to Win. I had sponsored a few fighters on his show, and then I met him in person for the first time at the West Coast Trials in 2019. And I know I always heard he's a little bit crazy, but we just hit it off right away. He's extremely passionate. He's knowledgeable. He's very good at what he does. And he says crazy and does crazy things all the time. But, I get the same questions about fighters too. People be like, oh, Gordon says this, and I'm like, I'm not their dad. I don't care about that. As long as he delivers what I need him to do, which he has been doing, that's all I care about. He says crazy stuff, but he's a grown man. I'm not going to ever, go and tell him what to say or do. I'll give you a funny story. I'm not going to name the name, but a high level competitor came to me after last ADCC, was sort of complaining about Gordon, and was saying, oh, he did the double bird after he won and stuff like that. And I'm just like, listen, I don't care. Like, he won and he just got double gold. Let him enjoy his moment. I'm not his dad. I'm never going to tell him, what to do. And I bring up a story of Jeff Monson. I think it was 2003. Jeff Monson got pissed or something. He literally just stripped butt naked and ripped his thing like on the mats and just grabbed his shorts and threw in the crowd. I'm like, if we didn't ban him for that, what am I gonna go ban Gordon for doing a double bird? Like, it just doesn't make sense, So we just try to let everyone be an individual. If you want to be super respectful, you can do that. If you want to go the Connor approach and talk a lot of trash, it is what it is. Doesn't affect me.
That's interesting you bring up Jeff Monson, because I think about that a lot myself. And I'm a crazy old man, and I'm always talking about trying to build the integrity up and all this other shit like that, just because I'm old and mean. I like to yell at the clouds and shit. But like the idea is, when you think about the historical presence of BJJ from the early days, and Gordon's even said this in his early days, like people give him trash. It's like, man, like the art of BJJ pretty much started by storming other jiu-jitsu schools and like kicking the door down and picking fights.
Jiu-jitsu guys used to go fight the Luta Libre guys on the beach. Right. Like, exactly. Gracie's in action.
Yeah,
Hickson,
Hickson found a bunch of Luta Libre guys, and there was just like a massive brawl.
Beat the crap out of each other on the beach. So like, my thing is this: everyone's different. Some guys are like Bushesho, who I'm good friends with, super respectful. Marcelo, that's fine, but you can't tell me, the Gordon approach is wrong, so it works for him, and who am I to tell him to do otherwise? So.
And I've never seen Gordon Ryan in the history of any of his matches do anything that I would perceive to be dirty. And I mean, poking somebody in the eye, smacking somebody in the face, anything that's against the rules that would make him like he was.
Cyborg famously slapped him around in their last match.
I was there. Yeah, he hit him quite a bit that match, and he kept us cool. So, like the thing with with Gordon is like, he's a professional. Like he sent me photos of his hands like 5 days before the event. I freaked out. I'm like, oh my god, he's out of the event. Like, his hand was triple the size. So he comes in with like a broken hand. He had food poisoning. That's why he didn't show up to the bracket reveal on Friday. He wasn't there. He's like, I got food poisoning. I'm dying right now. So he shows up with a broken hand and food poisoning. And for me, that's more professional than, I've had competitors come to the weigh-ins 11 pounds overweight and not compete. So which one's worse? I think the guy coming in unprofessional, overweight like that, on a free flight is way worse than someone giving a double bird.
Right. What? You know Gordon pretty well. I know you guys spent a considerable amount of time together, and you guys have been been buds for a bit, and you
not always, famously not always buds. I was just gonna say.
Actually, the way we started was as enemies. Well, not enemies.
Hey, Keenan, here's thousands of dollars. Please beat him up.
Keenan wanted me to beat him the first time, and then when he beat Keenan, I was like, damn it, I'm going to find someone. And then, oddly enough, he was competing at EBI. Then he came over to my house. We hung out, and then been friends since then, like almost 4.5, 5 years probably. So
tell us some of the...
I'm friends with a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys. Like, people are like, I'm close with everyone. Romulo, Galvao, Buchecha, Leandro, Philippe. I hang out with all of them. So it's not like I'm a favoritist. So
how do you migrate that difficult territory or difficult terrain between the old school guard of the more Bushido code grapplers versus the new upstarts?
Clout chase.
Yeah.
I mean, I just let them do what they want to do. For me, I don't care. I just love jiu-jitsu, so I can talk to a guy like Buchecha who's really respectful and quiet, and JT as well. So, and then I can hang out with, I've been friends with Dylan, Gordon, and AJ Agazarm. So,
wow.
So I can be all sides of the spectrum. I can be friendly. I'm not here to tell people, what to believe or say. So it doesn't matter to me. We have a hobby that we have in common. Just focus on that.
All right, well, the question I wanted to get to when we started was based upon what you know from Gordon personally and professionally. Tell us about what you think makes him so special.
I'm going to be honest with you. I truly believe, because I've trained with him, I've seen him train with, I truly believe he's the most technical no-gi guy of all time. And by quite a good margin too. So, and I think what I would attribute that to is his work ethic. He's not, I've known Gordon for a long time. He's not the most explosive guy. He's not like some freak athlete like Buchecha who can, be 260 pounds and move like a 150 pounder. But one thing with him is he trains all the time. That's all he does. His life is jiu-jitsu. He trains like 7 days a week in the gym, on the mats, in the gym, working out, eating clean. So his work ethic, I would say, is what makes him, something else.
It's interesting you say that, because a lot of people do say that. I say that myself when you watch Gordon. He's not really he's not a JT Torres or this explosive athletic specimen. He's not going to go out there and be up in your face. I think Marcelo Garcia is close in terms of technicality as far as technically no-gi.
Marcelo's a great example, because I think Marcelo is both. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
he's got
he is
unbelievable tech. I mean, Marcelo was. I feel bad because a lot of the new generation, they don't know these, and it kills me. Like when I tell people my favorite grappler is Jacare, they're like, "Oh, who's that?" I'm just like,
right.
"Oh God." They don't even know Marcelo. I'm like, "Oh, that guy just changed the sport."
There was this great meme of there was a picture of Gordon saying, "I'm the best of all time," and then this picture of Marcelo just staring at him, and the caption was like "stares and goat," and I'm just like,
"Hey man, if Gordon wins, if ADCC allows him to do the division and the super fight, he could be a 5-time champion, 26 years old. That's insane."
Yeah, I have no question at all debating Gordon Ryan's greatness. I'd like to see him do the gi, just because in my mind,
by the way, let me tell you something. He's really good in the gi.
Of course, yeah. If he wanted to dedicate himself to training the gi, he would be the greatest gi grappler of all time too.
I'll be honest, the first time I saw him, so I did the first Modolfo camp in 2017. It was a no-gi. It was like Gordon was there, Keenan, a bunch of Atos and DDS guys. And that was the first time I saw Gordon in the gi. And he was training with Keenan, and Keenan was just wrecking him, But obviously he wasn't. Right. Then the next time they trained the gi, it was like a year later at my house, it was pretty competitive, the thing that impressed me the most was they did a 30-minute roll, and he didn't get tired. And anyone that knows, I just figured he would have fatigued because he's not used to training in the gi. And then at the Modolfo camp in January, it's not released, but he was rolling with Kainan in the gi and everybody, and he was doing pretty well, to be honest. So I honestly believe if he dedicated himself to the gi for a year or something like that, he would do really well.
I love the little drama of that camp. That's the same one with Lucas Barbosa, and where he was he didn't sign the contract and the whole thing. When I hear that, I get so excited, because it's just this. Well, that drama is amazing.
It's like a reality TV. But like you said earlier, the hardest part is managing these type A personalities. That's the hardest part. But I think luckily for me, a lot of the competitors respect me, so I can sort of mediate, you know what I'm saying? So they just sort of trust me to handle things, and generally goes pretty well.
That's a very good question that I would love to expound on for a second. How do you, as someone who's behind the scenes, like working the event, how do you earn the respect of these like very type A athlete, combat sports athletes? Like what does that look like for you? How'd you find a way to do that?
I think it just takes a lot of time, and it's not something that comes overnight. I've been around a long time. I hang out with these competitors, in jiu-jitsu events, outside jiu-jitsu events, and I think deep down inside they know, like, I don't have any ulterior motives, and just generally I want the best for all of them, whether I can help get them a sponsorship or get them a match. I just try, like, if you're inside, if I'm hanging out with you, I'll do my best to help you out in any way, and that goes for all of them. So I think they see that, and they're just like, Mo's a pretty fair guy. Obviously I hang out with Gordon, I hang out with other Atos guys, and when I'm with them, things just go pretty smooth. So it just took a long time. I think when I did that first event in 2017, the West Coast Trials, that's when I started really just dealing with the fighters. And then, over the next 3 years, they just started to trust me a little bit.
Do you think that you, like, being a part of jiu-jitsu as someone who trains, who puts time in on the mat, do you think that helps at all? Like form a connection and a rapport with these guys?
Yeah, I mean, when I train with people, I talk a lot of trash. Like, I mean, and the unspoken rule in jiu-jitsu is what happens on the mat stays on the mat. I don't do that. So, if I can tap you or if I can pass your guard, I'll literally go on my Instagram story and post it. So, I think they laugh about that, because like my thing is this, like I'm an old school jiu-jitsu guy. Like I started in 2003, actually at Hicks and Gracie's starting the gis. So for me, like positional like I'd rather pass someone's guard than submit them. Like for me, just passing someone's guard is just like the ultimate. So I'll just sit there, and obviously I'm not going to beat these guys, but if I can score a point, I'm going to talk. I'm never going to stay quiet. So
that's funny, man. Yeah. That's funny, dude. So let's talk about what we got coming up this year. So obviously we had some hiccups, unforeseen, we'll call them hiccups, like the world is, in chaos with COVID. Tell us about some of the things and how that played out.
So the problem is this, I'm sort of stuck because I can't do anything until these trials get moving. But I'll be honest with you, I think delaying them was the right call for multiple reasons. Number one, like, I don't think Canadians are even allowed to fly to the US right now. So Australia's on complete lockdown. So it would suck to have like a lot of people that want to compete that can't compete. The other factor is a lot of schools are starting to come back now. So people are like, hey, we can't get the proper training to do these trials. So let's just delay it a little bit when the time is right, when everyone can compete, everyone's in shape. And I think it's just going to be, I just really think it's going to make the event that much bigger. Everyone's been on lockdown for like, half a year now. Everyone's going stir crazy. So once we come out of this, this crap, I think it's just going to feel, jiu-jitsu as a whole and ADCC.
Yeah, you even came out and said that even if we have to push back the worlds, it is what it is, just to make sure that we get the best quality performance out of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it just would kill me to cut or get rid of the trials. Like that leads up to the event. So if I have to delay the worlds by a month or 2 or even 3 months, I'll do it. I don't care. But let's just do it right. We get one shot at this. We're going to be in Las Vegas. So, the arenas, I was just there last month. It's insane. Like the fact that a jiu-jitsu event is going to be, the fighters are just going to go crazy when they see this thing, when it's done.
I'm super excited about it. I was actually excited when I saw that you were pushing the trials back, because once again I'm going to drag my own bones to the trials and give it one more college go to see where I'm at, and giving myself that extra month or so to get back in shape again after the hiatus.
I've been releasing some videos on tips and strategies for ADCC. So I just released one on wrestling that was really good. So
I saw that. I saw that.
BJJ World, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they reposted it, but I posted on the official page. Like that one that video is probably 99% of the competitors don't know about, and I'm talking about even champions. So it kills me when I see, and I bring this up in the video. It's like, you're gonna go sit there and train for an event that's once every 2 years. You're gonna sit there, go to the gym 3-4 hours a day, 6 days a week, kill yourself. but you're not going to spend 2 hours to learn the rules, the intricacies of the rules. Doesn't make sense to me. And then you look at someone like Galvao. Galvao knows the rules inside out, you know. And then even in the video, I bring up the Gordon Buchecha thing, like how he essentially pulled guard by using the 3-second rule from turtle position. So, you know, if he hadn't used that, maybe Buchecha would have taken him down and won the match. So that's what I'm trying to say is like, this is a difference between winning the trials and a world title. So
let's talk a bit about that for a second, because we're talking about points. So we're talking about the ability to learn the point system. And I think a lot of the reason why guys talk about, you know, not myself, but people will talk about how sub-only matches are better than points matches, because you can now start to game the system in a points match. You can learn how to play the game and do other things like that and strategize according to that. And, you know, sub-only matches, it's all about who gets the submission and things like that. Tell me about how you justify in your mind the point system in that strategic game, when guys will pass the guard, learn how to, you know, maybe a lot of, for example, you've got a 6-minute fight.
Counter your sub only thing too, because I think there's a problem with sub only too. You'll see guys who just die for crappy toe holds 20 times in a fight. Does that really mean much?
No.
To me, it doesn't. Like, if you're going for a legit submission, if I have your arm extended or I'm going for a triangle, yeah, but like, you know, a lot of these sub only, like, people are just diving for toe holds and leg locks just nonstop. Personally, I don't like that. Like, and the thing with ADCC is the concept of ADCC goes back to, it wasn't intended to be like a jiu-jitsu event. It was supposed to be a submission grappling event. But what happened over the years, so in the original ADCCs, you even had like a sumo wrestler there, you had sambo guys, you had wrestlers, but over the years, obviously jiu-jitsu just proved to be superior. But if you look at the rules, it's a balance between favoring the wrestlers. You know, you can't pull guard when there's points time. So it's just this hybrid rule set, which is really hard to do to make the wrestlers happy, the submission guys happy, the points guys happy. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for me, you can't tell me, you know, JT's not known as the biggest submission guy, no gi, but you can't tell me he's not dominant. You know, when he takes you down and controls you, passes your guard, or takes your back, like, for me, that's just as impressive as, you know, getting an arm bar or something on someone. You know, to sit there for 10, 15, 20 minutes and just implementing your game and controlling someone, like, for me, that's just as impressive, if not more.
Yeah, you know, and from my understanding, the points in ADCC were also designed to best represent what a real life fight would be like. And the idea of, yeah, I'm right there with you when we talk about sub-only. When I see some dude jumping on some toe hold 5 times that he's never going to get, but just so he can look like he's going for more submissions to meet the criteria to win, it's just as bad as holding somebody in half guard. But when we talk about the point system in ADCC, like the idea of taking someone down, maintaining that control position, not just taking someone down to their butt hits the ground till you get scored, but holding someone on the ground and planting them there, passing someone's guard and holding them there and making sure that they can't get back up again. Like, that better most represents what an actual self-defense
100%.
Confrontation is going to be like.
And let's look at the points rule in ADCC. So obviously the first half of a match, there's no points. So who does that favor? That favors the sub-only guys, the submission guys. So, which I like personally, because, like, okay, we're not going to penalize you. We want you to come out, try to sub the guy, come, you know, guns blazing. And then the second half, we're going to add the points, which helps the positional dominant people and the wrestlers. So you cannot pull guard essentially in ADCC when there's points time. So it's sort of it's a rule set that sort of helps everybody out, and which is really hard to do. You know, doing these hybrid rule sets is not easy. So
I think that's another question I wanted to sort of float your way. We've seen, especially recently, a sort of resurgent of the mixed style matches, specifically with like jiu-jitsu and like gi jiu-jitsu, no gi jiu-jitsu, and wrestling. You know, we've seen a lot of like Bo Nickel, Gordon Ryan, and a few others like that. As a matchmaker, how do you view those types of matchups? Do they hold any worth for you? Like, do you care about them?
Not really for me personally. I just feel like it's just going to be such a big divide to make a rule set that really encompasses that's going to be fair. You know, like, you know, if you can't do leg locks against a wrestler, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? So I just personally, I don't really like it. Like, if you're going to call some out, you got to go compete in the rule set. You know what I'm saying? So if a wrestler wants to go and train jiu-jitsu, and, you know, they can do well. Look at Rustam. You know, Rustam's, you know, he's not the best jiu-jitsu guy in terms of like submissions and stuff like that. But he adapted his wrestling for jiu-jitsu and has achieved some, pretty good success. So, but I like I said, me personally, this hybrid rule set, it's not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I get it. I understand. I think it's another quest for these guys to just try to get more eyes on jiu-jitsu, and I can respect it for that accord. But like, if we're doing jiu-jitsu, we're doing jiu-jitsu. If we're doing wrestling, we're doing wrestling. Or if you want to combine the two, why don't you just have a points match and we'll call it a day? Why do we have to play? Why do you have to play this weird?
Yeah, and I think ADCC is a pretty fair rule set for both. Yeah. But when you're telling a jiu-jitsu guy he can't pull guard against an international level wrestler, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, you could theoretically be Bo Nichols and do fairly well in the ADCC just based upon your wrestling and your solid base and not being able to sweep them
all the time. Like even Mark Kerr, I truly believe you brought a prime Mark Kerr to ADCC now in the heavyweight division, he could medal, he could even win. So, right. At the lighter weights, it's tough. For example, look at Nicky Ryan. October 2nd, he's fighting Tony Ramos. Tony Ramos is going sub only. So I respect Tony for taking that match and competing in that rule set that doesn't favor him. So, my hat's off to him to go and compete against, Nicky's a killer on the mat. So,
but I also, I'm sorry, I mean, interrupt you. I apologize. I can't keep my mouth shut sometimes, Mo. I'm sorry about that. What I'm starting to see now, and this is something that I've talked about for quite a bit. When we first saw the introduction of professional grappling into the world, we started to see those separations. You started seeing guys, well, I'm a sub only guy, and sub only is the real deal. And if you do points, you're silly. And then you have points guys say, well, no. If you do sub only, you're silly because I do points grappling. And points grappling is the only thing. What I'm starting to see now is the hybridization of those two thoughts. Like you're not seeing guys that are just points grapplers. You're not seeing guys that are just submission grapplers. You're seeing guys that are well versed in the point structure, that understand how to pass guard and maintain positional dominance, but they're also firing submissions off and going after submissions at the complete complexity of what jiu-jitsu submission grappling is today.
I agree 110% of that. Like you're starting to see this like merging of the rule sets. So I agree. But like I said, some people don't like ADCC rules. You're never going to make everyone happy. Yeah. Like, I enjoy watching EBI, but like I'm an old school guy. Like I just personally, I don't like someone to start on my back unless they took my back. That's just me. But at the same time, the plus with EBIs, there's no discrepancy. There's no judges. There's no refs. You know what I'm saying? So if you win that match, it's based on your own merit. So like I said, there's pros and cons for every rule set.
Okay. I would be remiss if we didn't at least bring this up, but let's go back to talking about Gordon Ryan again, because I feel like there's some hot news here, and it involves the UFC, Colby Covington, Gordon Ryan, and our current guest, Mr. Jassim. There was Colby Covington's just coming off of a big win against Tyron Woodley. Somehow, yeah. I'm a little fuzzy on how he got LeBron James got brought up, and then Gordon Ryan threw his hat in there, and then there was a bet match between Gordon Ryan and Colby Covington that you became involved in.
Well, basically, I saw like a press conference or the post conference. Colby had said like he's got the best jiu-jitsu coach in the world. I've heard of this guy. I know he's really tough, and he's like, I'd put up $100,000 for him against anyone in the world. So I was just like, okay, like. I'll take that bet. I'll put 250 to your 100. Let me pick my fighter, and we'll see who wins. So,
hey, is there any way I could join this bet and throw in every cent I have in this world?
I got about $700 in an account somewhere. I can give you.
All mine. So, obviously, like he's probably like hyped up after a big win, and so just like I said, Colby's just hyping up his coach. He's happy, so I think he was just caught up in the moment, but. If he really wanted to do that, I would do it. So I'll take that. I've done those bets before. Like I argued with some guy on the internet one time saying Khabib would smash any jiu-jitsu guy in a grappling match. I was like, okay, I'll put up 3-1 odds. Put 100, I'll put 300,000, no problem.
Yeah. So the reality of it is like you see these grapplers all the time when they started training for ADCC and they start going back and forth to MMA. Like it's a different skill set, not necessarily a different skill set, but it's a different training mindset. If you took Khabib and you gave him a year to focus primarily on submission grappling, possibly he could give some of these guys, the top level guys, a run for their money. He's going to beat a couple, but the idea is when you're training for MMA, you're not training for the same nuances of ADCC.
I'm not going to name names. Like I know a lot of these jiu-jitsu guys train high level MMA guys, and they tell me like when they do strictly pure grappling, it's not even close. You know what I'm saying? And then when you start adding, MMA is different. You see superior wrestlers get taken down all the time because you start adding strikes. It's just different. You know what I'm saying? So, obviously Khabib's very dominant. He's got probably the best, ground game in MMA. But if you're gonna do like purely jiu-jitsu or like ADCC rules, I don't think so. And I always bring up look at GSP. He did ADCC in 2005. He did well, but then he got flying armbarred very quickly. And then Ben Askren too. Ben Askren got heel hooked in 25 seconds in ADCC. So
that was actually something he did an interview after his retirement, sort of reflecting on his career. And a big thing he did was it was big when he was competing that he gave himself a black belt. He put himself above the jiu-jitsu hierarchy. And he was so dominant for so long in one that people just sort of let him do it. But then he went on reflecting once he got to the UFC. He admitted that he wished he spent more time on jiu-jitsu, specifically the submission game, that there could have been another echelon of talent there for him, so that's, hindsight's 2020, but that's it's good to know that it's not something to be ignored.
No, 100%. I think it would have helped him a lot tremendously, so, but it is what it is. I mean, he was still, very dominant, but I think that would have helped him a lot. But like I said, these MMA guys doing strictly grappling against these guys, it's not going to end well.
So let's go on off with it. Let's tell us about the ADCC coming up. Tell us what we can expect. Tell us about some of the things you got going on in the level competition, the venue, the whole thing. We're all excited to see what's coming.
Yeah, so 2019 we did the Anaheim Convention Center. So that had a capacity of 7,500. Now we're doing the Thomas and Mack, which is 20,000. So they just spent $100 million renovating the arena. So like I said, it's really impressive. So, you're going to walk into that arena. I've changed the configuration for this ADCC. So last ADCC, the arena was cut in half and then you had the giant screens. We're not going to do that this time. We're going to have the fans all around the mats. So 3/4 of the mat. So they're just going to be surrounded by thousands and thousands of people. So, and in terms of production, we can do some really crazy stuff. There's going to be pyro, lasers, performers. I'm going to have ADCC posters on the billboards in Las Vegas. So I want to make it as professional and as, high level as possible. I really want to leave a mark and I want to show people what's capable. If you believe it and you put your mind and heart into something, you can really achieve something. People told me all the time, oh, you can never do this, you can do that. But, I just want to prove them wrong and I want to elevate the sport as high as possible, and so I can just leave my mark and just show what's possible for the sport and let it to continue to grow.
Well, there you go, man. I ain't got nothing else to add to that, man.
I feel like I'm remiss to be the wet blanket here, but with social distancing and a lot of guidelines being put out by different states and countries, is that something you've equated for, or are you waiting for more guidance from governing bodies and whatnot, or is that something you're prepared for?
I'll be honest. Right now, my only focus is I got to get these trials going. So once those start to to go, then I can focus on that. If the arena comes to me and says, hey, you can only do 25%, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to delay it. I'm not going to rush to do this. I have a vision of what it's going to, what the end product's going to be. And if I can't get it, I'll delay a month, 2 months, whatever it takes. But I'm optimistic. I think a year from now, things will start to get better. That's just what I think. I mean, it has to be.
I think by that window we should be able to figure out a way to put people in.
We reached a breaking point some months ago. I feel like everyone's just sort of, and especially in the jiu-jitsu community, where we sort of got to get our lives back a little bit. So it's good to know that the ADCC is going to be back and better than ever with more pyro and lasers. If Mo is to be believed,
it's good. I'm telling you, I get goosebumps when I went to the arena and because I know what the end vision is going to be. But trust me, if you didn't go to 2019, you really missed out. You can't, if you watch videos, it's different than being there with 4,000 people, we sold out. We actually sold out, which was great. So 4,000 people screaming, doing the wave, and it was just intense. So I think after 2019, I think the turnout's going to be massive. I get at least 30, 40 messages a day. People, can I buy tickets? Can I buy tickets? I'm like, just got to wait. So I think, people after this whole COVID stuff and what happened with ADCC 2019, the turnout's going to be massive.
Well, cool, man. I think we're good with that, man. Kev, you got anything else?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would look. I don't know if we're gonna get Mo back again. All right,
Yeah,
we might have blown this whole thing. So I would be remiss if I did not ask this question, which I think has been an underlying theme in a lot of the guests we've had. Mm-hmm. And I'm not gonna ask you to spill a 20-minute soliloquy about it, but I am genuinely interested in, given jiu-jitsu's journey from its inception 100 years ago to where it is now competitively and in the culture of the world, how big do you think the sport of grappling, like the banner term of grappling as ADCC understands it, or jiu-jitsu for those out there, how big do you think jiu-jitsu can get? Like, where's the ceiling?
I think we're not even I think we're scratching the surface, to be honest. A lot of people can train in jiu-jitsu. I think that's just going to continue to get bigger and bigger. As long as we can put on, entertaining events like this, it'll just continue to grow. Because I'll be honest, like a lot of people that went to 2019 came up to me and they're like, we don't even train jiu-jitsu, and we had a great time. So I'll tell you, the one thing that hurts me or hurts ADCC is, like, let's just be honest, a lot of jiu-jitsu is just not very good. It's not very entertaining to watch, So, when I go and say jiu-jitsu, immediately their head clicks. They're like, oh, what about this? And for me to separate not just ADCC from that, that's the hurdle. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, jiu-jitsu is just continuing to grow. We just scratched the surface, but we can make it a lot more professional. I want to make sure the fighters get paid as much, with sponsorships and everything. So, the more money in the sport, the better quality competitors you're going to get. That's just, that's true for any professional sports. So.
Cool, man. Like,
all right, yeah, that's all I need, man.
I just, before you go, Mo, I just want to really, first of all, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you giving your time like this, man. I know you're a busy guy.
We really appreciate you.
We really appreciate. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks for coming on. But secondly, I just want to thank you personally for doing as much that you do for the sport that I love. Because just like yourself, I envision a world where professional jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu and competitive jiu-jitsu has a spotlight and has a stage that not just dudes that love jiu-jitsu like, but the everyday guy can go sit down, the civilians can go watch and get a kick out of it. And I feel like you are driving that fork or driving that road forward, and I really appreciate personally, on a personal level, everything you do.
I appreciate the kind words. Like I said, I just do this not for money or anything. It's actually cost me a lot of money, but I just love jiu-jitsu. I can talk about it every day. I watch matches every day. So, whatever I can do to help, I appreciate it. And thank you guys. Jiu-Jitsu Times has always been great. I always say it publicly. So they've been always very supportive, and I never forget, anyone that helps out, I get people asking me all the time, like, hey, can I get a media pass? I'm like, no, I'm not going to go give you a media pass when you didn't promote the event, so you can just get a bunch of photos and sell it. I'm like this year, I'm going to be so strict on the media passes. Like, it's going to be like a handful. That's it. But, like, these people just, I know who helps out. Like, people that promote the event, like I said, Jiu-Jitsu Times, BJJ World TV, constantly promoting and helping. And I never forget that. So if I can help out and do these podcasts, I'll come back anytime.
I just for future reference, Mo, when a guy in your position with like the clout you have says, like, I remember my friends, I never forget, strong mafioso vibes, like strong Godfather vibes. I don't know if that's, like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
I'm meaning it in a positive way. Like, if you help me out,
right.
Try to break your legs or something.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and rewatch just to make sure I didn't piss you off. But I'm gonna, oh shit, what did I say?
I'm gonna send some goons to your house. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh boy. All right. Well, this has been an incredibly informative, star-studded episode of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. Special thanks again to Mo. I normally we ask our guests if they have anything to plug, but I don't know if the ADCC needs a plug. So maybe if you have do you have any socials?
You got any sponsors you want to kick out, Mo?
Yeah.
No, just no. I just came on just jiu-jitsu. That's it. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and I'll definitely be back.
Oh, well, we love to hear that, sir. But until then, I have been your host, Kevin Bradley, joined once again by my co-host, Mr. Kevin Gallagher. To all those jiu-jitsu fans watching from around the world, please stay safe, stay healthy, love your loved ones, and we will see you next time. Good night.